Okay, welcome back. We are up to Mishlei 12:11. Okay. Ovid admaso yisba lachem umaradif rekim chasar lev. Not the most difficult pasuk to translate. Anyone want to take an attempt here? We don't have Tamar here yet, I guess.
I can try.
Yeah, go ahead, Ayal.
So someone who works his land will be satisfied with bread.
Yep.
Umiradev.
Yeah, now you might be thrown off also by the mem, but let's just pretend that the mem doesn't exist because it seems like a lot of people say it's the same thing as like rodef.
Okay, so someone who chases.
Yep, but someone, one who chases. Okay, this is the hard word to translate.
Emptiness.
Okay, yeah. So literally, it's like emptinesses, right? But we'll see. I know that's not an English word, but we'll see that it could either be emptinesses or empty people. Okay, it could either be a description of a thing or a type of person. Chasar lev.
Lacks a heart.
Okay, lacks a heart is the literal translation. Okay, so then we have Sadyagon's translation, who just translates lev as da'as, which is a fairly common thing. That, for example, in Chumash it says a lot of times kol chacham lev, anyone who's wise of heart. It really means wise of mind. And so we can just let's just do a little thing here. Lacks a heart or knowledge. Okay. Targum translates it as defalach ba'ar'eh yisba lachma. One who works his land will be satisfied with bread. That's the same. And then udaradef basar srikusa. Okay, so srikusa, according to Jastrow, looks like it is a literal translation of rake, idleness, vanity, recklessness. But I'll add those words here. Okay. Let's see. So let's say for rakim is, what did it say? Idleness, vanities. What is it? Vanities, a vanity or recklessness. Yeah. Oh, I see where it gets recklessness from. Okay, hold on. I'm saying vanity or recklessness. Okay, rayanahu, and rayana means is the same as rayona. Means lacking desire or lacking thought. Okay, so thought. Okay, so let's put all those in there. Okay, so those are our translations. Okay, all right, then we have our English translations. Art Scroll says, he who works his soil will be sated with bread, but he who pursues vanities lacks an understanding heart. Okay, you know what, hold on just a second here. I'm gonna do this. Let's go like this. Let's go Rekim, and then we'll do an asterisk and then just put all of the translations below. Okay, so we have as translations here. Hold on. Okay, emptinesses, empty people, idleness, vanity, recklessness. What did Art Scroll say? Vanities. Okay, fine. All right, so we can delete this. Living Now says, he who tills his land will have his fill of bread, but he who pursues emptiness is devoid of sense. Okay, pursues emptiness. All right, that's pretty much the same. Okay, Rav Hirsch has an interesting one. The tiller of his land shall satisfy his hunger with bread, but he who chases phantoms, okay, that's Rav Hirsch, phantoms, will get his fill of poverty. Okay, so what he's doing is he is adding the word yisba to well, it's weird, he says poverty, right? What does he do with lave? Right? Is there a lave? Am I just missing something obvious here? The tiller of his land shall satisfy his hunger with bread, but he who chases phantoms will get his fill of poverty. I don't know what he does with the word lave. Okay, but that's interesting. And then Alter says, who works his soil is sated with bread, but who pursues empty things lacks sense. I think that's similar enough that we could omit it for now. Okay, so let's get rid of these and just keep our translation up here. Okay, and since we have someone new with us, I'll just go over the procedure here. So what we do now is we're going to ask all the questions and raise all the problems that we possibly can, and not give any answers yet. And then once we do that, once we're sure that we have all the questions, then we'll take a minute to think, and then we'll start proposing ideas. Okay, and then we'll do the Mefarshim after. Okay, so what are the questions here? Yeah, Alex.
Is it the actual work itself, like working the land, that gets you the bread, or is it that because you're, not idle, that you like merit bread?
Okay, good question. So let's I'm going to broaden the question a bit. So what is the cause and effect relationship, between Ovid Admaso and Yisba Lachem? Okay. And I'm actually not going to list all the possibilities. The two that you mentioned are good, but I don't want to try to list all of them to imply that it's going to limit it. But that's going to be a major question here. Okay, good. Ayala?
So what does it mean to Mirade Freakim? And I guess the whole second half also.
Okay, so we'll break those into two things. Okay, so let's break it into three questions. Okay, what does Rekim mean? Okay. What does it mean to be Meradef Rekim? And then what is the relationship between, and I'm not even going to say cause and effect relationship because it's unclear which one's the cause and which one's the effect. What is the relationship between Meradef Rekim? Is it with the Yud? Yeah, Rekim and Chasar Lev. And Ariel?
I kind of have multiple questions, but well, I feel like the first half of the pasuk is really obvious.
Okay. All right. So I'll add that.
Man.
I'll add that as a question here. So what is the chiddush in the first half? The second half is just not obvious because we don't even know what it's saying, right?
Yeah.
But the first half seems obvious. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and what are the opposites exactly of the first?
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so how are these two halves opposites?
And does the person know that he's chasing emptiness?
Okay, I'm going to assume not.
Yeah, I know, right? Me too. I'm just wondering.
So then I think we could still convert that into a useful question, which is, I don't even know if this is part of the question 4 or not. I'm going to put it there just to keep it concise. So, why does he pursue? Why is he Meradef Rekim? Rekim, right? Like what? Why? What is he thinking? Okay, you know what? We can. Yeah, I think that's all part of the same question. Okay, why did this suddenly stop typing? Uh-oh, did it freeze? That's weird. Well, Fago, why don't you ask me your question while we wait for this to adjust?
I was wondering why it says Admaso, like his land, and that's
good.
important.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. This is not encouraging. Okay, oh, there we go. Okay, so why specify Admaso, right? His land, right? I mean, isn't it obvious that he's working his own land? That's a good question. Yeah, Alex?
Is it inherently implied that someone who's working land isn't capable of like chasing after Rekim? Like,
okay,
is it
That's a good question. Oops, sorry, I spelled ILMS wrong. Yeah, that's actually an interesting question. I'm going to actually lump this over here, which is because usually you have usually in the psukim that we do, it's clear that the person in the first half cannot be doing what the person in the second half is doing. Like if the first half is about a tzaddik, then the tzaddik is not a rasha, right? So, but here it sounds like you could theoretically do both. Okay, so is it possible to be an Ovid Admaso and Meradef Rekim, or are they mutually exclusive? And if the latter, and either way, I guess, or I guess, and if the latter, why? Yeah, Alex. No, is that left over? Okay, yeah, Ariel? Nope, you're on mute.
Can you scroll back to the questions really quickly?
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that it wasn't asked. Yeah, okay, so, oh no, it was asked, never mind.
Oh, you know what we didn't ask, which is implied here. What does Chasar Lev mean in this context? which is, you could break that into two questions. What is lave and what does it mean to be chasar lave? But yeah.
Yeah, maybe also like what emptiness of what?
Yeah.
Was that a question that we asked?
No, but we could add that to here.
Okay.
Empty of what? Yeah, that's a good question. Ayala?
So I have two minor questions.
Sure.
One is there significance? Maybe this is a type of question which may not have an answer, but can. So yisba lachem, like specifically like satisfied with food.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe interesting.
Yeah, that actually, I don't think that's a minor question. I think that is an
okay.
important question, which is, what exactly does yisba lachem mean in this context? Yeah, because that could mean lots of things. I mean, it could mean like, it could be a general metaphor for, I mean, let's put it this way. It definitely is not saying he's going to be wealthy, right? You know, it's not putting an emphasis on like the amount of money that he's going to make. And it's also, you know, does this mean he has like enough? Does this mean that he had like, that he's happy with it? You know, well, what exactly is the yispa? So I think that's a good question. Yeah. And what was the second one?
About lave. So why does it use the term? Like, I feel like chasar lave is interesting. I would
Okay.
think.
Yeah.
It's like not das.
Why specifically, why does it specifically use lave? Okay. And I'll say, even if it means das, like Sadigan says. Yeah. Okay, good. Alex?
Who exactly is the target audience of this?
Yes. Okay, that's a good question. Who is the intended audience? Is it generic, or is there a specific audience? And you know what? Just before I forget, because it's been like a month since we had Mishlei, let's just really quickly review the pasukim beforehand, not the ideas, just to see in case there's a like flow here. So where would this? Oh yeah. Okay. So I think if anything, if this is connected anywhere, it's going to be connected from 9 and on, because that also talks about bread. So tov nigleh ve'eved lo mimis kabed v'chasar lachem. Okay, this was a difficult one to translate. Better to be a degraded person and a servant to him, or a servant to himself. Some people said mimis kabed, than someone who makes himself honored or who pretends to be honored v'chasar lachem, and lacks bread. Yodei tzadik nefesh behemto v'rachmei rishayim machzari. The tzaddik knows the soul of his animal, but the mercies of the wicked are cruel. Okay, and then we have our pasuk. So that's the context, in case that matters. Ariel.
Yeah, it's funny because like the second half of the pasuk, if the second half of the pasuk was if it was reversed, it would make a lot more sense. Like if you say someone who lacks a heart or lacks a desire, you know, will chase emptiness.
Well, it can mean that. You could definitely read it that way. I mean, that's the
Wait, you said it can or can't mean that?
Can. You may read it that way. Yeah, that's the natural ambiguity of the Hebrew, is that it is unclear what is the subject and what's the predicate, right? It could be that Meradef Reikim is the subject, meaning the person who chases empty things, chasar lave. We're saying about him that he lacks a heart, or it could be that you know, chasar lave is Meradef Reikim. I mean, that's just.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
And that's why, by the way, what did I do? Oh yeah, that's why so for the first half.
That's interesting.
See, the first half you can't say that, I don't think, because first half is saying present. I mean, I'm using English tenses here. I know like Hebrew has perfect and imperfect and all this other stuff, but Oved Admaso is in the present tense. Yisba lachem, he will be satisfied with bread, but this is just two descriptions, you know. So that's why for the first question I said, what is the cause and effect relationship between Oved Admaso and Yisba lachem? Actually, you know, I really could have said the second one here. I tried to leave it even as vague as possible. What is the relationship between Meradef Reikim and chasar lave? But it could be both ways. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, no, that's good. It definitely helps with some thoughts.
Okay, good. Okay, do we have all the questions? Let's just think it through once more. Oved. I'm also going to say, as another minor question, what? Okay, I guess like, what does Oved mean in this context? You know, like you could say Oved is just a normal way to describe like doing farm work, or you could say, like, for example, in that pasuk we had 2 psukim ago, Eved lo meant like subservience, like a certain lower degree or greater degree of subjugation, so like I don't know how much we want to read into that. Okay, Muradif. I'm going to ask this question, even though I don't think anyone else can answer it because I don't think we know enough grammar, but I'm going to just acknowledge that this is a question. Is there a difference between Muradif and Rodef? And one person who might have been able to answer this question, who we're not going to learn tonight, is the Malbim, because the Malbim connects this to the next pasuk, so I didn't want to touch it tonight. Okay, so let's do what we usually do, and I'm going to copy and paste all the questions and put them in the chat. Let's see if I can get them all in one shot. Probably not. I can. Okay, so there are the questions, and now let us take our minute to think, and then as usual, what we'll do is whoever has a what they feel like is a full idea, one that explains almost the whole pasuk, or answers the majority of the questions, those people get priority, and then we could do half-baked ideas after. So thinking. Okay, anyone got anything? I'm not seeing any hands. That's a first. Okay, Ariel, I knew it could count on you.
I was gonna whatever. I was gonna follow my rule for the year, but
okay.
I mean,
okay, well, you technically are, because no one raised their hands. Go ahead.
Okay, so all right, I'll start with one for now. I have the so maybe you could say, like, just starting with the second half of the pasuk. I'm gonna read it like, if you lack a heart, then you chase emptiness first.
Okay.
For a second.
Yeah.
Because like if you don't have like a desire,
mm-hmm.
You're gonna just chase emptiness.
Okay, so you're taking lave as desire.
Yeah, I'm gonna take it as desire.
Okay.
Like you have no motivation. You have like no reason to want to do anything.
Wait, so then why are you chasing emptiness, or what is the emptiness you're chasing? Because chasing to me requires effort of some sort. Like you're not doing nothing, you're chasing something.
It's a good question. Didn't think about that.
Okay.
All right, come back to me. Sorry, maybe.
Okay, sure. No, that's fine. That's fine.
Sorry.
All right, Ayala, go ahead.
Okay, I don't know if it's full baked, but I was thinking somewhat of a Kohelet idea.
Yeah.
Because I thought like the term Ovid versus like the term Rodef.
Yeah.
Seems like you're chasing something, but it's empty.
Right.
Like very Kohelet stuff.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that maybe both of these people are trying to get something, or I guess trying to get something.
Yeah.
And the first, actually, I'll start with the second one, I guess, is like has the thing that he wants in mind, and he's kind of like trying to grab it, or just like has that vision and is like just trying to get to that vision of like the thing that he wants. So he's like chasing it. But I guess it's emptiness because like I didn't think that through fully, but maybe because it's not he doesn't have like a defined picture of what it is. He just like wants something.
Okay.
Whereas the first,
No, go ahead.
Okay. Or I was gonna say the first half maybe is you, instead of like focusing on like this thing that you want, you focus on the process of what you have to do to get there, and you invest your energies in that, and like kind of put the end goal out of your mind for the present, and then like you work on that, and then in the end you will be satisfied with Brennan. And like I feel like I guess the term satisfied is like, I don't know, like it'll fulfill that desire, I guess.
Okay, so let me do two things. I saw that Alex wants to add to this also, but let me highlight two methodology points and then restate your idea, and then we'll try to develop it. Okay, so So one methodology point, which I feel like we end up saying a lot, but I feel like I haven't articulated in a while, is many of the psukim in Mishlei, not only do they deal with opposites, but it's dealing with two people who approach the same situation and have the same desire, but go about it in different ways. One does it intelligently, what the other person does it foolishly. So the question that like Ayala, that prompted this approach is Ayala noticed that the verbs that it uses have a very different character. And Muradev is kind of like I don't know, it suggests like a certain like desperation, whereas Ovid is much more putting on the, well, not only is it a desperation, but it's a desperation that is connected to like seeing something in the future, in the future that you're like going after, or something in the distance, whereas Ovid is just focusing on the process itself. So I think that was a good observation. And tell me if this is what you're saying, or if I'm reading into what you're saying, that it sounds like the key difference between the two of these people is that the Muradif Reikim skips the step of assessing like what exactly is this thing that I am chasing, and is it actually attainable? But instead he just like throws himself into it. That's what's going to bring about his downfall. Is that what you're saying about the second guy, that he doesn't think about what he's chasing? Okay. And the first guy, so how would you contrast with the first guy? I can see like two possible approaches, like just in terms of like just describing the first guy as the opposite of the second guy. Anyone can answer this. It's not just for Alex. Yeah, Alex.
So this is kind of what I picked up from her approach, where yes, they're both putting in a lot of effort to the things they're doing, but the Oved specifically is putting the effort into something he can control, like his own land.
Right.
Whereas the Rodef is going after things that are not within his control and not necessarily like grounded things that are attainable for good or whatever.
Okay, that's really good. Hold on just 1 second. I'm just trying to think if this is a relevant idea to share right now. If not, okay, I'm going to share this, even though this is kind of it's a little bit of a tangent, but because I mentioned Koheles, then I might as well do this. So in Koheles, in the opening psukim, you know what, is this going to be too much? Just give me 1 second. No, it's not going to be too much. Okay, so in Koheles, he has these 4 psukim here that say, I'm going to try to explain this without presenting the whole approach to Koheles. Dor holech v'dor bav ha'aretz le'olam amades. A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth stands forever, or lasts forever. V'zarach hashemesh uva hashemesh ve'el makomo sho'ef zoreach husham. The sun rises and the sun sets, and to its place the sun rushes or yearns to shine there. Holech al daram v'sovev el tzafon, sovev holech haruach v'al sviv osav shav haruach. It goes, okay, the it, by the way, is talking about the wind. It goes to the south and goes up to the north. Round and round the wind goes, and on its rounds the winds return. Kol hanachalim holchim al hayam, hayam einu maleh. All rivers flow into the sea, but the sea is not filled. So the place where the rivers go, there they return to go. So without going into how we got these ideas, I'm just going to summarize the conclusions here. We said that these are categorically, there are 4 reasons why people don't get the things that they chase in terms of in life. Now, I'm not talking about in the particular, but like when people set up their whole lives to like whether it's money or wealth, poverty, love, whatever, the reasons why people fail to get them or get them and are not happy can be summarized here. Okay, the first one is death. Okay, that either the reality of death claims you before you get what you want, or the prospect that you're going to die and lose everything bursts your fantasy bubble in terms of your happiness, and makes you and it makes it so that you can't fully enjoy it. The sun thing we said was that there are things that people chase and they're thwarted by outside factors. We said that's like represented by the fact that if you could, if you imagine the sun going around the earth, which is how they thought that it went back then, and the sun wants to shine and illuminate on the earth that's underneath it, but the earth keeps rotating, and so it thwarts the sun's desires to do that. The wind, we said, is when you're you're chasing something that is inherently an impossible thing to achieve. Okay, like that's the idea there is that, you know, wind occurs when there's a difference in the air pressure, right, between low pressure and high pressure. I'm using modern terms. Obviously, they didn't know about air pressure back then, but like the wind will rush to fill the vacuum and to create the equilibrium. And so there will be things that people chase that they don't even realize are impossible, you know, things that are impossible. So let's say like, I want to be wealthy. It's going to be a constantly moving goalpost if you define wealth the way that people define it now of having lots of money. Or if you say, I want to be popular, I want to be liked, I want to be beautiful. These are all things that the closer you get to the thing, then the more the goal is going to recede. And then the last one is about the rivers going into the sea and then the sea not being filled. That's when your very efforts to get the thing thwart your ability to get it, you know? So the reason why I'm bringing this up now, even though it's a little bit beyond what the pasuk is saying, is this guy is not engaging in any of these thought processes. He's not thinking about whether the thing he's chasing is attainable, you know, he's not thinking about whether he can attain this, you know, like given the fact that he is a mortal being. He's not thinking about external factors that could impair his ability to get it. He's not thinking about whether the goal is intrinsically impossible. And he's not thinking about whether the manner in which he's seeking to get it is thwarting his own efforts. And therefore, he's rightly described as chasar lev because he's not thinking, you know, that only someone who is not thinking would engage in this kind of pursuit. Whereas the guy who's oved ad maso, he's focusing on this process, and he knows that if you farm the land and you follow all the procedures of good, like you know, agriculture or whatever, then you're going to get, you know, you're going to get bread. And yeah, there are things outside of your control, but he's not trying to control those things. Like you can't control how much rain you get. He's not trying to control how much rain he gets. He's just trying to farm his land that you can control, you know? And so statistically speaking, he's going to be satisfied because he's focusing on a realistic thing. He's making sure it's realistic before he goes into it. All right, Ayala, did I miss anything? Any nuance of what you're saying?
No, I wanted to add a little bit, maybe two different like negative consequences,
Sure.
which will like prevent this.
Yeah.
So I think one thing is that he won't be able to get actually his goal that he's trying to chase
Right.
because
Yep.
of that. And I think another thing is like a psychological consequence based off of the term yispa, is that even if he, and yispa and rekim, I guess, is that like, even if he does get something, like he's never going to be satisfied with it, like psychologically.
Okay. To that, I think those are wait a minute, hold on a second. Okay, yeah, so those are two good consequences, and then there's a third, which is he's not going to get bread because he's putting all of his efforts into chasing this other thing. Okay, so I'm just going to do the one-line summary in the notes right here. Okay, so so the guy in the second half chases an ultimate goal, thinking it will bring him happiness, but he doesn't bother to assess whether that goal is possible. Therefore, either he'll never get it, or if he gets it, it won't make him happy. It won't make him satisfied. And in any event, he won't have bread because he's investing all of his energy in this futile pursuit. Okay, see Koheles for details. Okay, and then in contrast, the guy in the first half focuses only on a process he understands within a realm he can control, and as a result, the outcome is reliable. Okay, even if it's humble. And by humble, I mean this guy is not going to necessarily be a millionaire, okay, because I don't think there are any reliable processes that any single person can engage in to become a millionaire. I mean, maybe there are some money-making gurus who would disagree with that, but but definitely it's within everyone's control to be able to get your basic needs taken care of. Okay, and there are processes to engage in that. Okay, good. Anyone have anything else to add to this approach before we go on to the next one? Okay, looking for starbursts or party symbols? No. Okay. All right, Isaiah, you're up. Where are you?
Okay, yeah. So I think my idea is pretty similar to the last idea.
Okay.
But maybe translating things slightly differently.
Mhm.
So I wanted to say someone who is like someone who works on their land. So when it says Yispa Lachem, that he's satisfied with bread, I think it means kind of like I think we were saying before, like he's Samech B'chalko, just with the bread that like the outcome of his work.
Yeah.
Someone who is Marade Freakim, I'm thinking that means like someone who chases after like other things and doesn't do their work, just like goes after maybe just like taiba or some things that they enjoy, or like anything that is like a distraction, something like that.
Yeah.
Their class or lave kind of means like I think it affects their ability to like think and to enjoy things. Like when you just spend all your time on like frivolous things that like aren't engaging to you, or just like are rakim, I think it like you lose like some sort of like you'll like lose an amount of drive that you would have if you were spending your time on like things that were important to you.
Okay, sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, I think that's basically
so I understand the individual components of what you're saying. I think what I'm having a hard time seeing is it seems like there are several variables going on here, and like it would be nice if there was one. There could be multiple variables, but I want to see the clean like contrast. Like what's the quality? Like in Ayala's idea, she was focusing on the on what the person is investing their energy in. Is it this goal, this unexamined goal, or is it in this trustworthy process? And in what you're saying, I see one element of the ability to be content with what you have. I see the fact that he is doing actual work. I see the fact that he is not allowing himself to be distracted. I'm seeing, by contrast, the fact that the guy in the second half is going to have a dulled, mind, but then that implies that the guy in the first half is going to not have the dulled mind. So like, I feel like there's a lot of qualities flying around. So either I'm missing what the central contrast that's being highlighted is, or we need to develop that more and find it.
No, I think you're right. I think it's lacking something in that.
All right, so we can
lave.
yeah, we can work on it. Anyone have anything to add to this approach, or to a step to take? Okay, I had one thing I wanted to add to this, I think. Give me 1 second. Oh yeah, I wanted to say where I thought you were going at first is Ayala. So Ayala's, I'm gonna actually just type this in here, okay? Let's say, I'm just gonna say ends and means. Okay, Ayala's approach focused on the ends and the means, that this guy did not bother to assess whether the ends are attainable, and therefore even if he employs good means, he's just not going to get the thing. Whereas this guy has an end that is definitive, and he's employing the right means. Okay, what I thought Isaiah was going to say is when he said Yispa Lachem, that the emphasis is not on his working, but is on his standards of happiness, which is he wants Sevilla, he wants to be Sameach B'chalko, and I thought that was, that might potentially lead in a different direction. So I just wanted to articulate that. Let's put that on this approach on the back burner, because I think there's a lot of different directions in which it can go, and maybe when someone has another approach, it'll help us to, by contrast. Okay, Ariel.
I think Ayala had a party thing up.
Oh, she did? Okay, I didn't see it. Sorry. Yeah, Ayala.
Yeah, so something that Isaiah said at the end of what he was saying reminds me of an idea of, maybe you can say that like the guy who in the first half is like doing something and he's getting back results. Yeah. That itself will motivate him more than like the second one, because he's like, his desires are empty. It's gonna, like, I think Isaiah was saying that he'll like lose the desire, or like not be able to invest in other things. So maybe because he's not getting results, like he won't be motivated to continue working more.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay. That's a good mistake. Hold on. Let me just think of an example of this. Okay. I'll use this example. I don't know if this is going to be the best example. Hold on. Yeah. In other words, I think part of, okay, I don't know if this is going to fit. I'm just going to start saying it. There is a mistake where you set your sights on something too big, and the goal is so out of reach that you're not getting anything to sustain you in the day-to-day. And the guy in the first half, because he has humbler goals that are more realistic, then the little successes will fuel his ability to continue. That's a good observation. Okay, Ariel, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a great example of that, but I'll just tell you later.
Okay.
It's just whatever, it's work related, but okay, fine. So I want to replace going back to my idea. I'm going to replace desire with knowledge instead.
Okay.
I think that just flows better.
And you're still going with the person who lacks knowledge as a result. He lacks knowledge, therefore he will pursue emptiness. Okay.
Yeah. I think that flows better because that'll answer like chasing something. Like he could be chasing emptiness. It's just if you don't have the knowledge to, in a given area, you're just gonna ultimately get nothing out of it.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas I'm still having difficulties with the first half of the pasuk because it's still a little too obvious for me. Like, okay, yeah, obviously if you have knowledge, in the on how to work the land, you'll be satisfied with what you get out of it. So I'm still having difficulties with that. Okay. But
yeah, so here's just to sharpen the difficulty here. I think one of the difficulties is the quality. If this is the guy we're talking about, the chasar lev, and if that means he lacks knowledge, it is weird that it doesn't highlight, like it doesn't call the first guy a chacham, or a navon or something like that, So that's a little bit bothersome to me. But I will point out that you don't have to come up with the chiddush in the first half. It might be that the chiddush is really in the second half, and the first half is just the correct decision. So,
So what's your main question on that?
My question is, if you're going to make this lacking knowledge, and that's the subject, so then the opposite of a chasar lev should be a person who is a chacham or a navon. And in fact, let's do an experiment. Chasar lev. I think if you look in Mishlei, and look at the pasukim that involve chasar lev, you'll find, let's see if this corroborates, and maybe it won't. Either way, it'll get us data. Oh, okay. So starting in the main part of Mishlei. So specifically navon timsach chachma shevit legiv chasar lev. Okay, so it contrasts the navon with a chasar lev. Navon is a person who has bina. Then sifsei tzadik yiru rabim ve'evilim b'chasar lev yamusu. So tzadik and a chasar lev. Baz l'reihu chasar lev ish tevuna. So again, it compares chasar lev to tevuna, to understanding. Okay, then you have our pasuk 15:21. We're seeing a pattern here, by the way, right? Is that chasar lev is contrasted with someone who has tevuna. So that's what leads me to believe, it doesn't have to be this way, but it leads me to believe that really, like Isaiah was saying, not exactly like Isaiah was saying, but really the subject here is maradif rekim, and that's being compared to the oved amnaso, and then the consequence is chasar lev, Because if the subject of the pasuk is the chasar lev, then the first half, I would think it would be someone who has a lev, which means who's an understanding person,
And it can't be implied within the first half of the pasuk.
You could say that. It's just it feels like an ikar chasam in a sefer thing, right? Like if we're saying that the thing that allows this guy to succeed is the fact that he's applying understanding, so then it should say it. It shouldn't focus on his working. And the reason why Ayala could get away with it is because Ayala is not putting emphasis so much on the knowledge. It's putting the emphasis on describing what the guy is doing. This guy is chasing something that he hasn't bothered to examine. This guy is involved in a process that he does understand. So like, even though according to Ayala, even though the deficiency is in the knowledge, it's not primarily about that. It's about like, are you looking before you set out on this whole quest? Are you actually like looking to see if what you're doing is attainable? Okay, back to the drawing.
Can you just state your question one more time?
Okay. Okay. Let me type it out the way that you're reading it. Okay. So Ariel's current reading is, one who works his land will be sated with bread, but one who lacks understanding chases emptiness. Okay, so my thing is like this, is if we're talking about a guy who lacks understanding, then the first half should talk about a guy who has understanding.
Okay.
And it shouldn't be focusing on just the working. The working is not what makes him, the opposite. It's the fact that the guy has understanding. And so that's why I'm saying ikar chasam min sefer. It's missing the most important point.
Right. Okay, fine. So
Yosef.
Give me a couple minutes, yeah.
For sure, yeah. Yosef, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think maybe it's talking about this might be a repeat of other ideas, but like you see a lot of the times that people get very invested. There's danger of being invested in fantasy, and that fantasy might be based on something real, but then it gets further and further into its own thing and just becomes alone. And that's what the Marade Freakim is. And he's and it's saying that it's kind of warning against that. It's saying that you should be an Ovid on Maso, meaning even if you're only going to be Yispal Lachem, right? It's better to be involved in that than something that could potentially just be rape, right?
Yeah.
It's warning against that potential that you're just going for the fantasy and that you're being blinded from the actual substance, right?
Yeah.
Meaning Yispal Lachem is enough. You don't need to. It's not worth it to go after the fantasy and be blinded, right? Because it's really.
So you are also saying that the chas v'lev is a consequence, right? That it's going to actually like take you further out of reality.
So I think that I could see it go either way. You could say that chas v'lev means that that it's a cause, meaning that you are being invested, like it's describing the process of it, right? Meaning that's what's happening when you are being Marade Freakim, is you're making a mistake. You're getting invested in your emotions too much, right? But you could also say that it's the consequence, which is that you will be, because you keep putting more energy into it, you will be more invested in your fantasies more. So it can be either one.
Okay, so I want to try typing this idea out, and you'll tell me if I'm projecting too much of an approach into this, and then maybe it's a separate approach. So I think according to this, the subject of the pasuk is this part I know you're not saying, but I'm gonna try this out. Okay, is choosing a career, okay, or what was that?
I was thinking of that.
Okay, all right, good. So choosing a career, okay, right? So there are careers in which success provides you with your needs, and in these careers you'll remain grounded in reality. But there are other careers which cater and promote fantasies, and the more you chase success within those careers.
That's something in really quick. It promotes fantasy, but it also it's Marade. I think it's also specifically ambition. I think it's both. It has to do with fantasies, but it also has to do with ambition, meaning that there's like some glory in it, or there's some kind of pursuit.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good addition. The more you chase success within those careers, the further out of reality you'll get, and the further away from satisfaction you'll get. So an example of this is like, I think in in acting, right? Like you hear these actors talking about their career trajectories, and like it's almost like a curse to get a success in something, because then you just are plagued with getting the next big thing, or getting the Oscar, or not becoming forgotten. It pulls you out of of the reality and attaches even more to a greater fantasy. And that one is a good example of the ambition thing. Maybe you can even use this to explain why it says Muradef.
That's why I was saying ambition, because it wouldn't be, I mean, why is it saying that he's chasing after emptiness? It means that there's some kind, I was thinking like people who are entrepreneurial and who say like, oh, I have the next big thing.
Yeah.
And they keep investing more and more money into it, right?
Yeah.
When like you need to just look at the results, and you need to look at what's going on a little bit,
Yeah.
and just, well, is there any evidence that this is true? Right.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was thinking more of. But I also don't think it only applies to careers. Like I do think it applies to like, let's say in terms of like a theory you have, right? Like let's say you have some kind of theory, right? Or like some kind of idea that like you pursuing, like string theory, right? That's what I was thinking of. Like,
Okay.
you keep pursuing it and you keep pursuing it, and like you don't see any evidence for it, but you want to pursue it for some other reason or whatever it is, right? It can apply in other areas besides for careers.
Okay, so let's say this. So choosing something to invest a large amount of your energy in. Okay, right? For example, a career or I don't want to just say like a theory, but like a we'll put it, something which brings you glory, right, etc. Well, there could be lots of things. Yeah. Okay. But I this is a different idea though, because this is than Ayala's, and I like this idea is that there are certain pursuits where you can succeed and the success is not going to further blind you. It's just going to provide you with your needs. And then there are careers where the success itself is detrimental because it pushes you further and further and further along, and that's a dangerous thing. And the person always tells themselves that they could just pull out of it, and that's not the case. And again, there's only, I know I've said this like a billion times, but like the best example is that I know of is in Breaking Bad. Like that's the whole, the whole thing is he goes into producing meth because he does it for practical reasons, that he wants to support his family before he dies. And then he gets so caught up in the fantasies of power and the fantasies of glory and greatness that takes on a life of its own and then creates all these problems. Okay, very good. Anyone want to add anything to this? Yeah, Ayala.
So can you give an example of what would be something where it does satisfy it? I just don't exactly understand what that means.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is that anything that a lot of this does have to do with the value system that you're using to engage in the thing, like there are people we know who are involved in like, in the finance world, but they're not doing it to become fantastically wealthy. They're doing it because they want to be able to earn enough money to be able to support their family and like learn, and so the way that they engage in it, they're engaging in it to them, they are trying to if you ask them what are they trying to do in their work, they're saying, I'm trying to get a parnasa that will satisfy my needs and the needs of my family. But if you ask the other guy, he's gonna say, well, I want my name to be on the firm, like I want to be like I want to be richer than everyone my age, or something like that, so it really has to do more with why you're involved in it than what you're involved in, I think.
So it's like whether the goal has value in itself. I mean, not in itself.
No, I think it has
can
to do
be
with,
a means.
Yeah, I think it has to do with whether that's a good question. Well, the way I would say it now, based on the way Yosef is expressing it, is like whether the goal keeps on pushing you to get more and more and more. Like I was going to say, and I don't have enough grammatical knowledge to say if this is good, is if you say rodef rekim, that just means you're chasing emptiness, but miradef rekim is like it makes you chase emptiness. It's miradef. It causes radifa, I don't know if that's actually correct reading, but like, these, again, I think acting is a good example of this. Is like the person gets this glory, or let's say, it doesn't even need to be acting. You have these people who become TikTok famous, or whatever. And like, they get this like taste of fame, and then they just want to outdo that or to sustain it or whatever, and just get more and more views and more popularity. It's just the success makes you more ambitious, and makes you want to get more than you got the time before, and the guy who's just trying to make enough to satisfy his needs is not going to have that problem, because it's focused on the reality of the needs. Tamar?
I think I'm a little bit losing the thread of what if anything is actually part of the career choice here. Should I clarify my question?
Yeah, sure.
Let's say, I would think that even if someone is like a farmer, right, which we wouldn't think is like an acting type career, they could relate to it in a Maradef kind of way, right? Like, is there something in the career, you were saying it before as like choosing a career, is there something in the career choice that you think
I do think that there are careers that cater to infinite fantasies more than other careers. I don't think anyone right now, you can make anything to a fantasy, but I think, let's say in Western, in America, I think fame is something that is almost a universal want. And I think farming doesn't cater to fame in the same way as acting does, or like wealth itself, can become an infinite pursuit. And I think there are careers that people go into where it's recognized, like, I'm not going to become wealthy if I do this career. And therefore the successes that I have, let's say like teaching. Okay. Right. Like if you want to be a teacher, no one goes into teaching thinking that they're going to be wealthy, So like the successes in teaching don't fuel greater fantasies that just like get a spiral out of control, So it's a safer career in the sense. Now, yeah, you can have other fantasies when you're teaching, but the but like for example, like there are definitely teachers who go in there and they want to like produce cookie cutter students who just agree with all their ideas. That's like a power fantasy, like an intellectual power fantasy. Or there are people who go into academia who want their become famous for their discoveries. But I'm saying, like, I think a person who goes in as a high school teacher is not going to get carried away in being Maradef Rekim, because there's no Rekim in that pursuit. So
thank you.
Yeah. So I guess I am saying a little bit of both. I'm saying that on the one hand, you can make anything to a fantasy, but there are, in any given society, there are going to be careers that lend themselves to that and careers that don't. For example, I think in Tanakh, like a lot of our great leaders were shepherds, because I don't care how successful of a shepherd you are, you're not going to be like expanding your shepherding empire, and like becoming like fantastically like rolling in sheep, like Scrooge McDuck, swims in gold coins, yeah. Okay, this is a good idea. I like it. Okay. Any other things on this idea? Okay, Alex.
So I have a way to expand upon Ariel's idea.
Okay, sure. Okay, good.
So, okay. I think the fundamental thing with the understanding is that the Oved Admato is satisfied with his bread specifically because he understands like what goes into it with like the tilling and the harvesting and milling.
Okay.
So it's the work itself that creates the understanding.
Interesting.
And the way to conceptualize it is like, there could be like two people that are into fashion, right?
Yeah.
And one does the work to like draft the patterns and sew their own clothes, and they understand the things that go deeper into it because of the like work they engage in. And then there's the person that like mindlessly goes to the mall and buys clothes off the rack, and they have like no understanding of what goes into that and potentially create more harm because like they could be engaging in fashion that's coming from like a sweatshop, right?
Yeah.
So,
that's a really, really good idea. I actually have a recommendation. Here's our book commercial portion of our share. I don't actually have the book though. But over Pesach, I was reading Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sax's book on Vayikra, and there's on Shemos. It was on Shemos, and there's one of his essays in Kisisa. He does an essay about the Egel HaZahav and the housing crash of 2008. Okay, and if you ever are looking, how the Rambam says in Hilchos Tainios that like whenever a tzara befalls the tzibor, then it's because of our sins, and we have to do tshuva as a community. So this is the most masterful like example of what that looks like. Is he took, I don't know exactly what was going on in the news at the time that he wrote the Devar Torah, but like it was the housing crash, and he did an analysis of what the societal hate was. And I'm not gonna capture the full idea, but one thing it came down to is he said that people had moved so far away from viewing the home for its true value and understanding what goes into a home. They made it into an abstract entity that is just there to get more wealth. They weren't even treating it as like a home before, and so they became too disconnected with the thing that they were working with. And that's what allowed all the fantasy to like flow in there. Yeah, that's a really good insight. So Obed Admaso Yisbal Lachem. So he understands all the steps of the process. And you see that with a great craftsman in any area. And versus Muradef Rekim is someone who is detached from the process in a manner that, yeah, see, I'm having a harder time getting this. Did you explain the lacking understanding or lacking a heart?
Yeah, so oftentimes if you don't like understand what goes into a process, you can end up doing harm by mindlessly engaging in it.
Okay, right. So it's the cause. I forgot that this is right here. Yeah, right. So since you don't understand the process, then you're not going to understand what goes into. I mean, another example of this, by the way, is all the people who, the perpetual problem with school. One of the problems with schools is you have all these people who are on the school board who don't know education, but they're the ones who are making all the decisions. And so they don't understand what goes into that. They just will make this happen, make that happen. And you end up messing up a bunch of kids. Yeah. Okay. That's good. All right. So let's do, I don't know if Ariel is considering this to be a development of his idea, but I'm going to go ahead.
No, I think it is. And I think that was the piece of information I was not getting.
Okay. That's really good. So the guy in the first half of the pasuk, works his land, i.e., he understands every step of the process and can value it based on that understanding, which will make him satisfied because his desires are grounded in that reality. In contrast, the guy in the second half lacks an understanding of the process, which will make him more prone to chasing what do you call when you can't achieve something? Unachievable. There you go. Unachievable standards of success, which will result in his failure. Okay, very good. Okay, I think this is a leftover hand from Yosef from before. Okay, so shall we check out some Mefarshim? I think these are good. Oh, before we check out Mefarshim, I checked. I did in my Mishlei archives. I did write up this idea, but I did not read it before the shiur. So let's see what I wrote. Okay, I just wanted to see if I had it there, and I noted that this pasuk is almost repeated verbatim in Mishlei 28:19. In 28:19 it says, "Oved admaso yisba lachem umradif rekim yisba rish." That's interesting. He will be satiated with poverty. That's interesting. Okay. So what did I write? I only wrote derech nistar. Okay, we're not going to do that yet. All right, never mind. And we'll say I do want to do derech nistar, by the way, but okay, that's not for now. Okay, so let's look at some Mefarshim here. Okay, so we have let's look at Rabbeinu Yona here. Okay, Rabbeinu Yona. So Rabbeinu Yona takes an approach that we did not take at all. Yosef, I assume your hand is left over from before. Okay, Oved admaso yisba lachem hosif l'daber al inyan she'amar lamala tov eved nigleh ve'eved lo. So this is adding to pasuk 9. Better to be a degraded person and a servant to him. V'amar Oved admaso yisba lachem umradif reikim chasar lev. So what does this mean? Hamiskabed umonea atzmo min hamalacha mipnei suraraso. Someone who honors himself and refrains from doing work because of his esteem, his authority, his position. Okay, in other words, like this guy, I think we talked about that when we did that pasuk. This person who's like doesn't want to do lowly work. Okay, ein lo mamun uschor lehis asik ba. He will not have any money or business to be involved with. V'yischaber la'anashim b'telim min hamalacha v'reikim chasar levhu. I don't know if that is a typo here or a bad girsa. He will, I gotta get my go-to Rambam, Yona. I'll be right back. Something's grammatically weird about that. Okay, so yeah. Chasar levu. Yeah, okay. So the scenario is like this. You got a guy, let's say you have a guy who was wealthy, or he grew up like in a certain like socioeconomic class, and he's out of work and he doesn't want to go get a menial job. So what's going to happen? He's going to sit there without having anything to fill his time with, and he's going to befriend people who are batalim, who are batalim min malacha, who don't work, varekim, and people who are degenerates, who are empty. Chasar levu, that guy is a chasar lev. Levad mashu chasar lachem, aside from the fact that he will lack bread, gam chasar lev, he will also lack a heart. Kamosh amruzal habatala mevi l'dei shiamum. Idleness leads to shimum, is like a desolation or like a mental illness. I don't know I'm not familiar with the context here. Hashenis ki ye'elef hamidos hapchusos bechevras anashim reikim. Second thing is he's going to learn bad midos from his friendship with these empty people. V'chein ksiv pentelaf orchosav, lest you learn his ways. Okay, so he's translating the pasuk in a way which we didn't do. He's saying that this is a further consequence of someone who is, let's look at the other pasuk again. 12:9. Better to be a degraded person and to be an eved than to maintain your dignity or your honor and be lacking bread. So there we said that there are primary consequences to if you don't want to work because you feel the job is beneath you. But this is talking about secondary consequences in terms of the company who you're going to end up hanging out with. You're going to end up hanging out with people who are batalim, who don't do work, and that's going to breed bad midos, and it's also going to lead to a certain mental state. I think in order to understand this, we need to come up with a contemporary example. So if anyone has something, then go ahead. I got to think of one. Or if you need me to repeat the idea.
Yeah, can you summarize the idea one more time?
Okay, so according to Rabbeinu Yona, this is talking about a guy who doesn't want to work because he feels that job is beneath him. So instead of working, he hangs out with other people who don't work. And as a result of that, then he is going to lack bread. He's going to have some sort of mental negative effect, and he's going to get bad midos.
And you're just looking for a modern day example?
Yeah, I feel like that would help us understand that. Yeah, Tamar?
Yeah. Okay.
I don't have a modern day example, just a comment.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there like an echo? Let me just see.
Not a bad one. No.
Okay. Yeah, I do think that the one thing that seems a little bit more self-evident is the negative mental effect. Like if you actually have nothing to do all day and you're just sitting around, I think that's actually a very stressful and straining situation.
Yeah.
Which I feel like we can all relate to a little bit from different pandemic things.
Yeah, I think so also.
That's at least that part of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good example of this mental effect that he's talking about here, is that it can lead you to, let's just call it unhealthy mental areas or spirals or patterns, and that is a thing, is like there's a thing in Perek Avos that work is good because it tova malacha. Wait, I gotta look it up. Hold on. I'm going here so I can. So where am I going? I want to be able to see the whole Mishnah. Avos. Oh, no, that's not the one. Oh, maybe I'm imagining it. I thought. Oh yeah. Yafet Talmud Torah im derech eretz shegias shneim mishakachas avon. Why was I thinking of that one? Forget it. That's irrelevant idea. But what Tamara's saying is good. Is that that this could be talking about just an unhealthy mental state that can have other effects. Yeah, anyone have any other examples?
I think Isaiah was first.
Yeah, Isaiah.
Not an example. I have a question.
Yeah.
Which is, why does he have to add in the step of he'll hang out, you'll like start associating with people who are batelim? It seems like to me like this guy could just go straight to being a batel himself.
Right.
Yes.
I suspect that Rabbeinu Yona is getting it from how he reads the word rekim. Okay, for example, there are other mafarshim like the Ho'il Moshe, who says rekim is called rekim upachazim la'avimelech, manashim rekim diyiftach, nashim she'em behem lo das v'lo zechus, v'zem mishane bechevrasam. So these are people who just basically are like lowlives, who just don't contribute to society and who just like sit there just doing nothing all day. So I think he's getting it from the words.
Right.
People.
He's just translating the pasuk as including other people in the equation.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and Muradif, he doesn't. It's funny. He doesn't explain Muradif, but it sounds like he's saying Muradif is mischaber, that you're going to befriend them. Like you're going to like be like chasing after them in that sense, like for companionship. I feel like there's does anyone have any other examples?
Yeah, I have something.
Okay, yeah, Ariel and then Yosef after that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like before I give the example, it seems like that if he did do work that wasn't beneath him, he wouldn't be hanging out with these lowlives. So I'm kind of I guess asking like, if that's true, like what's the source of his, like what's really the source of him like being this individual, like at the end of the day he's hanging out with lowlives. Like it seems like it's not innate to who he is. It's almost like because of a specific cause.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of the idea is that that this guy these are not the people who he would hang out with in good times, right? It's just that because he refuses to go to work, he finds himself in the company of these people, and then that's what leads him to to start deteriorating in this way.
Right. All right. So the basic example is like, I'm sure like people have gotten fired. Yeah. And like let's say you're a CEO of a company, you got fired, right? Right. And like if the only job that you could get in the market is, I don't know, being a bag boy at Stop and Shop, like he's gonna find that very demeaning to him. It's like kind of hurts his ego. So like he's not gonna do that, and it's gonna end up being a bum.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So like that's kind of like, and he's gonna hang out with other bums and
that's exactly it. I just want to point out, I think that to me, the essence of what I'm getting out of this idea is not about the particulars. I think this is an example of Mishlei thinking that's really, really important, which is that many times you can think about the primary negative consequences of an action, but there's a whole realm of secondary consequences here. Okay, the primary consequence is that this guy's going to lack bread. Okay, and that was what pasuk 9 said, right? Is that he's going to be chasar lachem. Okay, but this guy, I'm sure, never thought about the fact that his character is going to change and he's going to get mental issues because he refuses to work in a job that's beneath him. That's like a that's a going back to Breaking Bad. Like that's another thing. Like this Walter White, when he starts dealing drugs, never thought that he'd end up associating with people who have no morals, and then that's going to deteriorate his morality. Like it's a realm of consequence. Like it's one level to think about the primary consequence, and this guy is not even thinking about the primary consequence of not having bread. But in addition to that, there are these other consequences. Like I'll give you an example of this, and this is getting into the derech nistar a little bit as well. But like there are going to be people who say that this is talking about learning. So I'm just going to apply this. I don't know what I wrote, but there are people who, let's say, are in conflict about whether to be in yeshiva or not. And like and there's a certain sort of sacrifices that you make to stay in yeshiva. Like you're not going out and like doing what other people your age are doing. But And in their mind, it's just a question of, okay, well, either I'll get this learning or I won't get this learning, or maybe my learning will suffer. So let's say they decide to not go to yeshiva. Well, there's another thing also, which is the social environment. If you're hanging out in an environment with people who don't have those values, that's going to have an effect on your character as well. And you need to factor that in as well, even though it's a secondary, the primary reason you should decide to be in yeshiva or not is the learning. But there's a whole second tier of consequences that could come about from that decision. And that's what I think this pasuk illustrates.
Okay, can I add a question and a comment on what you just said?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll start with the comment first. So with like the consequences if you don't learn, you're just gonna be an amaris, and that's right. Like it's like and because you're an amaris, you're gonna live a lifestyle that's like unhappy and gonna suck. But basically, but I guess my question is, it's like, how do you speak with a guy like this? Like, what's the resolution to this individual? Like, how do you?
So I think this, according to Rabbeinu Yona, it's actually easier because we're talking about someone who is at a crossroads, right? Like he lost his job, and he just doesn't want to work in an area that he feels is beneath him. So I think you have to talk to the guy first in practical terms and say, like, how are you going to be able to get enough money to support yourself or your family, And then I think you have to use Mishlei's method, which is showing him real world examples. Like, tell me how you're going to be spending your time. The modern example is what a lot of men do when they're out of work. I mean, I've heard this is they spend all day playing video games. Now, in my day, when I was growing up, playing video games was a solitary activity, but now it's a social activity. And if you're spending your whole time playing video games with your headphones and talking with a bunch of people who are like lowlives, who are like during the workday, just like playing video games, that's going to start to affect your values, and you can end up like one of those guys. So I think showing him the examples is the best way to affect him, and also assuring him that, like, look, just because you take a job right now that's beneath you doesn't mean that you have to stay in that job for the rest of your life. Like, you need to worry about like taking care of your needs, like that. There's a hierarchy of needs for a reason. Yeah. Ayala?
Also, maybe another way that this can happen is like someone who loses their job, let's say, and they can only take a job that's like beneath them. Yeah, they're gonna feel like insecure, and they're gonna wanna like social acceptance, I guess, and like comfort from other people. But people who have jobs, they're gonna see as like kind of mocking, or like it's gonna hurt their ego because like they don't have a job. And I feel like it'll be like they're gonna be like cynical about that maybe. So then like they'll turn to support to other people. Right. Who are also not working.
Okay, right. So I'm going to modify my answer before about what Isaiah's question. Where's Rabbeinu getting this from? It is the word, but I think it's also what Ayala is saying is that you're going to be looking for some area in which you can restore your ego, and it's not going to be from the people who you used to work with. It's going to be from whoever you're hanging out with, whatever your social group is, or other people who can like feel good about the finding ways to make themselves like not feel so bad. And I think that's a sharp point.
Rubbish. Yeah. Before we go into the darkness approach, about the learning, I did have something for the first half on that. Okay. And I'm gonna apply Alex's half of Alex's idea onto that. Yeah. On the addition, I think like I think one who works on his land will be satisfied with bread. I think like in terms of learning, like if you work on an idea, if on your own, and if you go through that process, you go through the toil and the breaking of the teeth and the torture of getting to a specific, answer, like it's really satisfying. Yeah. It's like a good like high, Right. It's like, but the thing is, like the second half of the pasuk, like, I'm not really sure how to frame the second half of the pasuk for a contrast, but maybe you could say that, like, if he lacks, I think it even might be, either he lacks the knowledge, he'll probably, just get spoon-fed some of the ideas, and like ultimately he's not really kind of enjoying the good life of learning. I don't really know how to do the second half.
I mean, I'll tell you, if you're going to apply this to learning particular ideas, there are lots of ways that people shortcut things, right? Like they don't learn how to read and translate, and so they just rely on English translations, which if that's the only thing you could do, fine. But if you can, or they rely on summaries, or they rely on like other stuff, and they don't go through the actual work, and therefore they're not going to be connected to the ideas in the same way. It's going to be an artificial connection.
Yeah, it's just like the more work you put into it, like the better you feel about it.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think that's a good Derek Nistar approach. Yeah, Alex?
Yeah.
You could go a step further, even saying the person who doesn't put the work in to like form and develop their own ideas, who like kind of cheats their way into like taking other people's ideas.
Yeah,
and
definitely. Yeah, I think that's another example of this. Yeah, Yosef?
I was thinking that like in terms of just your overall pursuits, in terms of Torah, like when you're involved in more real things like Torah or Chesed, you're going to be more satisfied, and it's not like your satisfaction is going to be dependent on things as much. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're like, let's say, this is like a bad example, but just like, let's say like you care a lot about like, you're a baseball player and you like your value of your life is in baseball. Well, if you break your leg now and it's like permanently damaged, right? Like now like the value of your life has just gone away. So the more materialistic and the more like empty your like value system is, right, the less satisfied you're going to be.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, a lot of that in Koheles. Okay. I want to do 3 things. Okay, and then we'll stop for today. I want to really quickly read a Rav Hirsch idea, which I did not get a chance to think about, but it looked appealing. So he says, a third admonition to the industrious: beware of specters, empty projects. Okay. The primordial objective for mankind was to work the land, and this should be the prototype of our work for our sustenance. When a farmer invests his strength in tilling his land, when he entrusts the seeds to the carefully plowed soil, then he does not have to rely on unrealistic expectations or imagination. He's entitled to hope that his efforts will be crowned with success and his field will yield bread through God's help in providing sunshine and rain. Your own efforts should be based on a similarly rational foundation. Okay, so that's like the first half of the way Ayala was explaining it, I think, with the focusing on the process that he understands. Then beware of Rekim, phantasmagoria, unrealistic projects, promising returns for which any reasonable prerequisite is non-existent. The one who chases phantoms, Muradif Rekim, is devoid of sense. A good example of this is crypto, right? Now, there are certainly people who do understand crypto, but the vast majority of people who invested in it did not understand it, like as much as they think. And the reason why is because no one understands it. It's a developing thing. So I'm not saying it's impossible to make money off of crypto. I'm saying that that's a perfect example of chasing phantoms, of like these things that no one really understands and can make definitive, and all the crypto people who are confident about it make definitive statements. Oh yeah, just do this and you're gonna get rich, But like it's that's not the same thing as like farming. Farming, there's a lot more that people understand. So I think that's a good idea. Okay, so I want to develop. I don't want to read my old idea yet. I want to read try to develop a new idea based on the Meiri and Ralph Waldo Emerson. Okay, so the Meiri says like this: Hanistar bo. A person should not make excuses for refraining from learning due to the difficult time he has understanding and the deficiency of his natural dispositions. Okay, in other words, there is such a thing, like the Rambam talks about this in Shemona Prakim. Different people have different natural talents, right? Some people have very good memory, some people have very bad memory. Some people are very fast thinkers, some people are very slow thinkers. Some people are analytical, some people can't really be so analytical. Some people are abstract thinkers, some are not. Some are creative, some, so there's different strengths and different weaknesses, and you will have these dispositions. Okay, but what he's saying is, don't say, oh, I can't learn because I'm not cut out for learning. Why? Because with a lot of diligence and striving, you will achieve your goal. This is what it means when it says, Ovid admaso yisbalachem, one who works his soil, his land, will be satisfied with bread. V'hu ba'atzmo mashal chachmei hamusar al zeh. The chachmei hamusar give mashal on this. B'rov ha'avoda yisakin ha'adam eretz shomema v'hamalecha v'holi da v'hitmicha. Through a lot of work, a person can fix land that is desolate and like salty, meaning like stuff can't grow there, and he can make it grow there and produce plants. And that's why it says his land. Okay, so what's the mashal? The mashal is the land is your natural dispositions, and he's saying that you might not be cut out for learning when you first start, but what you lack in natural disposition, you can make up for with hard work. And one of the best examples of this is there's this famous book. I have forgotten now why it was banned, but Yeshiva has a copy. My uncle, the Netziv, and the Netziv. I believe the Netziv, I think I'm remembering this correctly. I read it in my first year in Yeshiva. The Netziv, was a great Talmid Chacham, but what made him different than other Gedolim is he worked for it. He was not a natural genius, but he put in a ton of work and became a successful person in Torah through his work, So I think that's a great idea, okay? And I want to expand it based on this Emerson quote, which I quoted in a thing I wrote in February, but so this is in his essay, Self-Reliance, okay? So he says, there is a time in every man's education when he arrives at the conviction that envy is ignorance, that imitation is suicide, that he must take himself for better or for worse as his portion, that though the wide universe is full of good, no kernel of nourishing corn can come to him but through his toil bestowed on that plot of ground which is given to him to till. The power which resides in him is new in nature, and none but he knows what that is which he can do, nor does he know until he has tried. Okay, so what that is saying is, it's the same idea as the Meiri, but he's taking it further. He's saying like this. You were given a certain self, okay? You were given a certain, like your mind, your emotions, your circumstances, and you can make certain changes, but like a lot of stuff is the cards that you were dealt, and there's a certain part in your time in your life, in your youth, when you are trying to like expand and like find the limitations of that, and you should, but then there is a certain time where you accept, okay, this is who I am, and these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, and I have to work within that. And at that point, the more you lean into that, then the better results you're going to get. And again, best example of this that I know of is Rabbi Moskowitz. Rabbi Moskowitz always used to tell us that when he was growing up, he used to want to be a posek, and be involved in like highest levels of halacha. And he the more he learned, the more he came to realize that he doesn't have the memory or the mind to be a posek. So he realized that his talents lie in two areas, in Mishlei and in methodology, and that he decided he's going to put all of his focus on that. And in terms of teaching, he's not going to be a Rosh Yeshiva and like be giving a high level Gemara shiur. He's going to be giving shiur on the basics, and he put all of his energy into that. And that was his that plot of ground that he was given to him to till, and he could just sit there being jealous of other people who are like successful in those areas. That's not going to get him anywhere. Like, you have to till your own soil, you have to farm your own land. And again, I think that this is age dependent. I think that there is time, when you're in your like teens and your early 20s, when you should be like trying to max out like your get as far as you can get. But then the more you do that, the more you're going to get to know yourself, and you're going to get to know like, okay, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, and like I should focus on my strengths and develop that, and like and you're just wasting time being envious of other people. So I think if you put that into this idea, I'll just say this and I'll call you Ariel, is that if you work your land, which is the land that you've been dealt, then you'll be satisfied, because that's all you really have to work with, so the more you can accept that, the more you'll be able to put in energy in a productive way. But if you chase emptiness, if you chase other people's standards of like of success, and like you're envious of this other person because they're a great chacham and like they're talented in that area, or this person's very good in this area, then you're just going to end up lacking, because you're going to be clamoring after that, and you're not going to be developing your own like potentials. So yeah, Ariel.
Yeah, and you're kind of also setting yourself up for failure also, because let's be real, like we're not gonna be like a Rav Moshe, fine.
Yeah, right.
Like if you just compare yourself it's almost like like you're looking at the objective, like that unrealistic objective, and like you're kind of like you're just on a shield and you're gonna automatically give up. It's like
exactly. Yeah, and I'll maybe I'll end this idea with the I think I've told this before, but not in a while. I still remember my first day of third grade, Miss Wilkinson. Okay, and the what she had everyone do is she, how old are you in third grade? Like 7 to 8, I think, right? So so she had every kid, each one of us draw a picture of a flower. Okay. And then she took all the pictures and put them up on the wall. And then she pointed out how like this, all the flowers look different. Like this one's very colorful and this one's white. And this one is like tall and this one's short. And this one has lots of leaves and this one has, less. And the moral of the story is she said that, how did she put it? She said like, your job is not to be like the other flowers. Your job is to grow the way that you were meant to grow, and to and like she didn't use the term, but like you are only responsible for actualizing your own potential. You can't control what potential you were given, though. Yeah, my mom wants to add something.
Yeah, I joined late, but has anybody mentioned? I mean, it's like Shakespeare's "To thine own self be true." I mean, as an English major. So
yeah, definitely. Okay, so let us do a review and then we'll stop for tonight. So we had Ayala's idea, which I would put Rav Hirsch's idea in that as well. Okay, which is hold on a second here, which is Rav Hirsch, which is sorry, I forgot to read my old idea. Let's see what I wrote last time. Okay, I said the qualities of diligence and industriousness are only valuable insofar as they are guided by knowledge and understanding. For example, in order to run a productive farm, one must not only be willing to do a lot of hard work, but he must also have a deep and working understanding of all the systems which are necessary to achieve agricultural success. I guess this is not just Derek Nistar. This is real also. This is a literal meaning also. However, if a person is equally diligent and industrious but lacks knowledge and understanding of systems, then all of his hard work will be for naught. He will end up chasing after fantasy-based visions of success and satisfaction, investing all of his time and energy into those vain pursuits, and will end up with nothing, not even his daily bread. That's kind of like reminds me of Alex's idea. Yeah. Okay. So that's, I don't know why I wrote Derek Nistar. I think this is Derek Nigleh and Nistar. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that's good. Then we had Ayala's idea, and Rav Hirsch's idea, which is that you need to apply your mind to the end that you're seeking to make sure that it is attainable. And if you don't, then you're just going to be chasing it forever and never attaining it and not getting your basic stuff. But if you focus on the process that you can understand and just devote yourself to trusting that process and doing the hard work, then you'll get the results, for all intents and purposes, guaranteed. Yosef's idea had to do with what you invest your energy in. And there are energy investments that keep you grounded in reality. And that's not a pun, even though it says Adama. And then there are pursuits that fuel fantasies that bring you further out of reality. And so you should choose, if you're investing your energy in something, you should factor that in, like don't go into a career where every step of success is going to make you pursue even more unrealistic things, because then you're just going to be setting yourself up for failure and for disappointment. Then there was Ariel's and Alex's idea about that if you understand every step of the process, whether it's in farming or in learning, then you will be more satisfied with the results. Whereas if you cut corners or overlook the steps in the process, then you're going to be you're not going to get the same level of success, and certainly not the same level of satisfaction. Then there was Rabbeinu Yona's idea, which is that continuation of his idea in pasuk 9, which is if you refrain from doing a certain job because you feel it's beneath your dignity, not only will you lack bread, but you're going to end up having being in a negative mental state from your idleness, and then you're going to end up hanging out with people who are going to have a bad influence on you. And that, I said, is like it's a Mishlei decision in general, that when you make a bad decision, there are the primary consequences, but then there are these secondary tier consequences that could be just as destructive. It's just you're not thinking about them because they're indirect. You need to warn against that. And then there's this idea in the Meiri that we just said, which is that the only land that you can farm on is the land that you were given. So you can only work on yourself and your own potentials. And there is a certain time when you should be exploring what those potentials are, but at a certain point, you should focus on just working on your strengths and not being jealous of other people. Okay, very good. I'm glad we had. I'm glad I overslept and we had a good regular Mishlei tonight.
So are you like wide awake right now?
If that's going to be followed up with a, I feel like that's going to lead somewhere. Why? You're not going to ask me.
I'm just asking. Like,
12,
it seems like you're like really juiced up right now.
Well, I am. It's only 5:30 my time. So what's going to happen is I'm going to be falling asleep late, and I'll adjust at some point. But
I have to pick up Akiva and Sean tonight.
Sean,
and both of their flights got delayed by 40 minutes.
Wait and okay. Oh, okay, fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to JFK first, and then to LaGuardia, and then I'm coming.
Oh boy! Wow. All right, that's good. That's good. Chesed or good money. I don't know which one.
No, it's well, Sean's buying me breakfast.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Akiva, I'm gonna probably make him buy me pizza on the way back.
Okay, very good. All right, good deal. Okay, thanks for coming, everyone, and until next time.
All right,
thank you. It's really nice to be back.
Yeah, it's nice to be back. All right, bye.
Bye.